Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Jen. So Jen, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
So I'm Jennifer or Karfaridis for short. It's easier to say Car for everybody, so that's what it is. I currently am in Vegas, but I do go back and forth between Orange County and Vegas quite a bit. So my location just kind of changes depending on what we're working on.
Awesome. And what do you do?
I am the co-founder of Plate and Profit. We are a restaurant consulting company.
Awesome. So how did you get into restaurant consulting?
So growing up, I've always been in the hospitality and the restaurant industry. My parents worked in bars. At one point, they owned a pizza restaurant. So I've literally been in the industry, like born and raised. I met my husband about 6 years ago. He's one of the original partners and founders of Wahoo's. So he obviously comes from the restaurant space. And COVID hit. We had a burger business back in Chicago when this happened. And we just decided, like, okay, maybe now is a good time to take a break. We just had a baby. And that's kind of how Plate and Profit was born. We started it back in 2021. And mostly it was just the goal of like helping restaurants recover after COVID happened. My side of the business is always like customer service and, you know, the more front and face and PR and media aspects, I guess, of the business. And he's operations and analytics, such as, you know, the P&L statements and all that fun stuff. So we just kind of combined everything that we knew, and here we are.
Awesome. So obviously, COVID for this industry was a very, very difficult time. What are some of the changes that you've seen since COVID that you've kind of, helped restaurants with?
So I think a lot of businesses back in COVID, the first thing everybody wanted to do was cut costs. And unfortunately, we had to cut a lot of people on our staff. A lot of restaurants downsized. I mean, obviously more, higher levels like a Michelin restaurant or something like that. You didn't really see them take as hard of a hit just because that's like a completely different scenario, I guess, for them, right? They're able to make some minor changes versus like the mom and pop that had to pretty much lose everybody and start over again. We saw a decline in service, right? So we lost some really great people in this industry, kind of like nursing, nursing in hospitals lost a lot of really great people too. And you see, even in that field, the customer service side of things has gone down quite a bit. I just don't think, I guess like pre-COVID, I would say a lot of people were in this, they were like lifetime restaurant people, right? Restaurateurs, they had been in the business for their whole life. Maybe they started bartending in college and they just never left because it was great money. They worked, for a good company. And now we saw a lot of people just leave to get, better benefits and higher pay and things like that. And it's that I would think, at least from what I've seen, has been the hardest to recover quality people. I've also seen them, cut quality quite a bit, right? They renegotiated contracts with like Cisco or whoever their providers were. Maybe the quality of ingredients has gone down, even quality in training, right? We're just not seeing people invest in people as much as they used to, which personally for me, I work at that side of the business, right? I deal a lot with the customers. There was a business at one point where I basically went like 2 years back, every single review that they had, we tried to do some customer recovery. We got most of them back, but it's just crazy how you just see, balls getting dropped kind of in even the littler areas like Yelp, for example. It's impacted businesses quite a bit.
For sure. So in terms of, in this scenario, right, like when you have, good people that have left, and obviously I live in Austin, it's a challenge everywhere in terms of just staffing and finding folks that are going to be, with you and be good and stay. I think also you see lots of turnover in this space. So how do you kind of like advise restaurants to find those superstars like in the market?
So the model that we come from, like I said, Steve is one of the founders of Wahoo's Choco. It's like a West Coast thing. They were in Texas at one point. His philosophy has always been, you're going to get quality people if you pay them well and you treat them well. So unfortunately, minimum wage, like in Nevada, for example, is only like $12 an hour at the restaurant level, but you could work at a gas station, right, for like $18 or $20 an hour. So we're kind of seeing that shift. And I know at some places it just doesn't make sense. Maybe they can't afford to pay their people more, but the way that I see things is that if we just give people a little bit more, we're seeing higher retention rates because A, they're making enough money where they want to come and work with you, right? And then B, if they're in those higher positions, if you offer them better packages or, salary, things like that, right? They're going to want to stay with you. So our philosophy for Plate and Profit is more like family focused, meaning treat everybody how you would want to be, right? So we've owned restaurants before. I want somebody to come to work for me because they love coming to work for me, right? I want to be able to put myself in that position and want to work for myself. And restaurants, people just don't look at it that way. Unfortunately, there's a lot of other businesses that open restaurants as investments, and it's not that typical like mom and pop kitchen anymore, right? It's just something that people are getting it to use as just like a different, investment for them, and that's okay. But I've noticed that the more we see that in the restaurant space, the more the customers are upset, right? The quality's not there. The customer service is lacking, or there's just nothing done. There's not enough reinvestment in the team to make it worth going there as a customer. I mean, I've even gone places where I see this happen and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to come back, So unfortunately, it just is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I would say that's the number one thing is just focusing on what our people need right now and, helping your neighbor, right? That phrase. If we just kind of take care of everybody a little bit more, then they're going to take care of you. And in the long run, your business is going to be successful. So.
Yeah, I think one thing that many organizations might not realize is just the cost of training and finding new people
Yeah,
can be really
it's
high.
not worth it.
Yeah, so you're better off just paying people more, right? And you
Yep.
have better people that way. And on top of that, like you're saving money and your time of having to go
Yeah.
and source out, churn and burn people every month
Right.
or every couple months.
Yeah, we've seen that. We've seen positions where they're hired at that very base, minimum wage level. And unfortunately, you get pinned against other people, right? They're saying, okay, well, this person's going to hire me at 15 an hour. You're paying me at 12. What are you going to do for me? And it's a back and forth. And then they just don't show up one day. And then you don't have that person anymore. And it just, unfortunately, it is what it is. But yeah, if we just take care of people a little bit more, we'll have better retention rates.
For sure. I mean, one thing I've seen here in Austin is some restaurants are even having like AI servers, like
Mhm.
robots, So I don't know if that's like a trend that you're noticing across the country or if you think that's something that's going to be much more prevalent in the near future.
I think with customer service, it might be a trend. I think that it makes sense, right? Because if you can get something at a really good cost or contract with some of these tech companies to where, sometimes it's actually even cheaper than like hiring a real live person to solve these issues. And I hate to say it, but not everybody that's hired for customer service can do customer service, right? And so if you can code the system to provide all of the insight and the answers, and even some of them can do analytics, right? They can go through your whole base and say, hey, 90% of your customers are saying that your chicken sandwich sucks. What can we do about it, right? I think that that's going to be the trend going in the future. It's just going to be cheaper, right? The robots are always going to show up to work. Unfortunately, it's not like you need a standalone system in your store. It's just something that's going to make things a little bit easier. But with that being said, depending on your on your restaurant space, it might not work for everyone. People still like that human interaction, and while that's okay for AI to come in and reply to your Yelp reviews, at the end of the day, when somebody's in your restaurant, it's not going to give them that personal service touch, right?
For sure. Yeah. So in terms of reviews, I'm always curious about this, right? So how do you, make sure that people do leave you like any reviews? I think that many people often will leave like a review and they have like a bad experience. So how do you make sure that somebody leaves a review after a good experience? And then also like just in terms of reviews, like how important is that in 2025?
Well, for me personally, I think it's pretty important. I mean, to give you a great example, we're in California now. So yesterday we were down in the San Diego area. We were looking for restaurants to eat at. And if I see somebody with like a 3.5 star, right, on Google or Yelp versus somebody with maybe a 4.2 or a 4.5 or even higher, you're going to tend to navigate towards those restaurants with the higher reviews, even without looking at the reviews, right? They still might have bad ones, but just because their rating is higher, and they're, maybe the pictures look great and things like that. People don't necessarily have the time to sit here and read every single review about a restaurant, right? They just want what's quick and easy. Food looks great. They've got enough stars. Let's go here. For me personally, from being in this industry, my biggest thing is the old school table touching, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be at a full sit down, full service restaurant to do that. There was a point in time, like I said, where we had a burger chain back in Chicago, Meatheads, and I would walk around the dining room and just ask people how their food is. That's literally something the cashier, the front of the house person can do while they're picking up trays. They can just say, hey, how was everything today? Can I get you anything else? Do you need more ketchup? Do you need more napkins? Let me grab that for you. That little nuance makes such a difference. And I think that people remember that. And so during COVID, even when our dining rooms were like half capacity and some of them were even shut down, even when we were running food out to the cars, making little statements like that, or, even just like cracking a joke with someone or paying them a compliment, that sticks in their brain. And not only are they going to go home and be like, oh my gosh, by the way, babe, I went to this place today and this lady told me that she loved my shirt and she brought me extra napkins. And it seems like such a small, stupid thing to do, but all of that makes a difference in the end. And not everybody will go home and rave about it, but enough people will. And between word of mouth and then, maybe them writing something positive on your page, that's going to make a difference. For me, my level's a little different, right? I'm at the exec level and I have enough supervisor and management experience to where I feel comfortable and confident enough to have these conversations with people as like a friend, just like this, right? It doesn't need to be very robotic. I've even walked around the dining room and said, hey, if there's something that you don't like, here's my card or here's the manager's card or whatever, please reach out. If you want to share your review, please do. But I always want the opportunity to recover first while they're there in person. And if I don't catch them while they're there in person, I'm going to make sure that connection that I have with them over the review reply or the email or that phone call back to them is going to get them back in. And I'm going to show them how that should have gone the first time. And honestly, I want to say 100% of the time it works. Let's just call it 92% of the time it works. Most of the time, people who are like you and I and a lot of other people, right now, like I said, salary is huge with what people are getting paid. And so when they go out to eat, we don't have that disposable income like we did before. And so when they have a crappy experience, it's really upsetting because the price of things in general, it's just insane right now. And restaurants, a family of 3 going out to eat, even though you have a toddler, it's still well over $60, even if you're going, to some of the cheaper places. And so I think people just want to feel like they spent their money in a good way, right? They want that good experience. And you just never know what people are going through, right? It might be their anniversary or it might just be their only lunch of the week that they can buy. And so I think to just give everybody the same good experience every time makes such a difference.
But do you think it helps or makes sense to like ask people to leave you a good review if they're happy or give them some sort of
course
for leaving it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the fast casual space, what we've done before is, companies that have apps or point systems or even punch cards, things like that. I'll say, hey, leave us a good review. Sometimes we've done offers that said, if you loved everything truthfully, leave a good review. Maybe you can get a free small fry next time or something like that. So even small incentives make such a difference. And I don't look at it as like paying for reviews because honestly, if you don't want to leave a good review, don't leave a bad one because it only helps our team learn from that mistake and experience, right? But if you leave a good review, then, everybody's happy, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it definitely makes a huge difference. So obviously now we're in 2025. So what are some of the biggest objectives that you have for this year for your business?
So right now we're really focusing on trying to expand a little bit. So we're just trying to see companies might be looking for help. And a lot of them, I mean, unless they're really failing, they're not going to reach out. But I still like to do my due diligence. And I mean, I'll reach out and say, hey, I had a bad experience. I'm not even coming to you as like somebody trying to sell you on my business. I just want you to genuinely do better because I love this industry. Like I've been in it forever. And I think everybody could succeed, obviously, if they wanted to and work hard at it. It's not a hard business to do that in. So for us, we're just, we're kind of looking to expand out. We see a lot of pain points, and opportunities kind of everywhere we go. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but there's always room for improvement, right? So we're doing that. We're working with a couple different tech companies right now to see if, collaboration works for us and them. We're actually getting ready to be involved in an Austin-based business also. So that's kind of exciting. More farm to table. So just looking to expand and see where the opportunities lie, really.
So when you're working with companies, like let's just say here in Austin, like do you typically have to like be here and have boots on the ground, or can you do it virtually? What does that look like?
I think it depends on the scope of the project, right? So some people just want us to overlook their finances, for example, to see where we can cut costs. They want us to overlook their contracts with their food reps and things like that. And that we don't necessarily need to be there for, right? That's something that we can do from anywhere. Now, obviously, if it's operationally, if it has to do with customer training, things like that, we would prefer to be there. There's only so much that I can learn from your business online without actually seeing it with my own two eyes, right? And so that even back of the house or front of the house team management, something like that, it's hard for me to have a Zoom call and say, hey, this is what you need to do when I haven't actually seen these people working. So that's really the difference. But yeah, I mean, if you're just looking for something to do, like, I don't know, write up your franchise agreements, for example, or something like that. I mean, we don't necessarily have to be there. So.
For sure. So if you could go back in time to before you got started, what is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew?
Oh, that's a tough one. It's such a hard industry, restaurants sometimes it could actually break you. I mean, it's not for everybody. This is definitely a hardcore thing to get into when you're like really involved. I honestly, I would change my degree for like business management instead of environmental science, because as much as I wanted to save the world back then, I'm not doing that in that capacity. But I would tell myself, I don't even think I would change anything. Just keep focusing on the people that you work with and building relationships, because I'm realizing now, like back then, we wouldn't have even thought about it. But right now, especially with the fires and with COVID and with all these things going on, I'm just seeing that people really are like looking for that connection, right? And with AI and Instagram and all of these great technology apps that we have and so forth, they're missing the human connection. So I think I would tell myself, maybe stay away from the media and technology side of things as much as you can and focus on building your community and building your teams.
Awesome. So if somebody wanted to work with you and reach out, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
So best way to get in contact with me is plateandprofit.com. You can email me directly on there, or you can find me on Instagram, also at Plate and Profit. I run all the media for everything, so I'll be the one that gets all the messages.
Awesome. Well, Jen, thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, it was great talking. Thanks. I appreciate it, Dan.
Likewise.